weekend. Start in the front row, batting leadoff. 2025 is Dave.
Thank you. Ryan, I talked about this at Big Ten Media Days. Defensive tackle, how you guys just didn't want to go in the portal just for the sake of going in the portal. How do you feel about your depth at D tackle?
Yeah, I feel like some guys have stepped up this off season, and we're going to need them to. But a big area for us to focus on coming into preseason is how well the feedback has been coming out of the weight room. You just get a good feel for the strength gains, the gains. With so much of our foundation as a program happens in the weight room. So it's accountability, it's toughness, it's leadership, it's competitiveness. And so all these things get challenged on a day-to-day basis. And, when Mick gives you feedback on guys, stepping up and growing and getting better, that's encouraging. Now we're gonna have to go put it on the field. So we won't know till we get out there, but some guys have a different look in their eye and we're gonna need them too.
Ryan, after what you saw from the quarterbacks, and I know you're going to rewatch all of this stuff, can you just evaluate what you saw from Julian, Lincoln, and Tavian after they won?
No, I wish I could. It's just a start. We're just getting moving around, and so hard to tell. I do think all three of them look a little bit stronger, a little bit more explosive, moving better, a little bit more command of the huddle. But we'll watch the film and kind of go from there. Day one without pads is kind of hard. So, we'll probably a better feel here. Give me about 4 or 5 days and get a better idea.
Go second row middle, Dan Hope.
Looked like Edric suffered an injury out there. Is there any update on him?
Yeah, no, I haven't talked to the trainers yet, but we'll go from there once we talk to him.
Go first row to the left, Joe Nugent.
How was the first day? What'd you think of it out there today?
Yeah, I thought there was good energy. I thought we talk a lot about the first play of a game, the first drive of a game, the first play of a drill sets the tone, and we wanted to set the tone as the first practice of the year. It seemed like we had good energy out there. A lot of guys getting a lot of reps, and what we try to do is we try to, especially early on, get as many people as many reps as possible, especially with a group that hasn't played as much football as this group. So there's no way to supplement experience and reps. So that's what we're trying to do. So we were getting 48 plays during one period by splitting up the work. And that's good because our guys need that, and that's important. As you guys, we've talked about this the last couple of years. Once we get into practice, 4, 5, 6, then we start to get together on one field, but you're just not getting as many reps. So that's why we try to do that and get as many people, as many reps as we can. We'll get on the film. I'm not sure about the execution, but it felt like the effort was there. But one challenge for our team is to learn to practice without pads on. It's really important. Guys have to stay off the ground and take care of each other, but we also have to be competitive. And I say to these guys all the time, you want to be in an NFL camp, then you need to learn to practice without pads on. If you're on the ground in an NFL camp, you're going to find yourself cut really fast because, NFL organizations are investing a lot of money in these guys. Well, it's not much different anymore, in college. So we've got to take care of each other, and that is a big deal. We have to learn to practice well and smart and efficient, and so that's a part of a young team. But I thought the effort was there.
Second row, Stefan.
As you guys go into the season, you had this the clip a couple weeks ago talking about the Scotty Scheffler quote on learning how to win and things like that. How quickly after winning your first national title did you kind of start to shift that focus and learn how to not get complacent, how to keep striving for more?
Yeah, it's when you spend your career on a vision of what you want and a goal. Once you accomplish it, there is certainly a feeling of accomplishment. But soon after that, it's on to the next thing, and that's what the case was. And it was great to see our players, our coaches, turn the page on that and move forward. I think this team, has their own identity. They want to have their own identity, yet they also want to be the first team ever to go win back-to-back national championships at Ohio State. And that's going to start with the first game against Texas.
Right next door, Bill Anderson.
Right, it looked like, I think on the roster even, it says that Ethan's down about 20-ish pounds, 25 pounds. How did that process go in the offseason? How much initiative did he show, and how much did you guys have to kind of be on him?
Yeah, it was great to see the transfers come in, and anytime a transfer comes in from other programs, regardless of where it is, you always like to ask them, what is your perception of how we do things here? What are things that we do different? And so we've had, as you know, schools from the SEC, schools from different parts of the country, different levels. And so, when Ethan first came in, he was heavier than he is now. I thought he's done a great job with his body. You can tell just the way he looks that he's leaned out and he's moving better. He was recognized among a lot of guys were recognized. But when he was recognized last night in one of our champions meetings, it was significant, the amount of guys that, really supported him. But it was the same way with Max. It was the same way with Bo and some of the guys who came in who quickly embraced the culture, because we do things differently here. There's no question. And I think if you'll talk to anybody who's come into our program as freshmen, that's all they know. But the transfers are the ones that can give you a little bit of the comparison of other programs and how different things are here, because we make no qualms about it that like our foundation is the weight room and how we do things. And so that's where you build your respect. For instance, like just take the example of a quarterback. For a quarterback to win the respect of his teammates, a big part of that is in the weight room in the off season. Now they got to go do it on the field, but those are big steps in progress as a leader. And I'm very encouraged with this mindset of this team. I'm encouraged by the leadership that some of these guys have taken on. Now we need. I kind of look at it like when I look at this room, I see the young guys in the back. We need that back end of the room to now really step up. And the only way to do that is to get on the field. And so that's where we're going to be here in fall camp during these practices.
During fall camp, what are you specifically looking for in terms of Julian and Lincoln in their evaluation for your starting quarterback?
Yeah, you want command of the offense. When you stand in there as a quarterback, you want everybody in that huddle to believe in you. You want them to follow your command. That's a big part of it. Then taking care of the football, making routine plays routinely, getting us into the right play. And that's one of the things last year that I feel like Will probably doesn't get enough credit for, was all the little things that kept the offense moving. Sometimes it's throwing the ball away to keep us on schedule. And then I say it all the time, ultimately as a quarterback, third down, red zone, and 2 minutes is where you make your money. But we have good pieces around them, and they just need to make routine plays routinely, have command, and make great decisions. And if they can do that and move the team down the field to score touchdowns, then they're going to give us a chance to win.
Ryan, you just kind of mentioned Bo, but you have a guy like that who you kind of want to make an impact this year, and you get him after the spring portal. How does that change, or does that speed up things for you guys to what you need to see from him in the fall game?
Well, he's an older guy, and I think that helps when you have guys who have played for multiple years and at the college level in the Power 4 conferences. They come in with a certain mindset, and then you have to ask him. But I think for him, like coming into Ohio State, he wants to prove himself. This is like a different environment for him, and I think he wants to. We want to prove, and I think a lot of these guys are that way. They want to prove themselves at Ohio State because they feel like if they make it here, they can make it anywhere. And I think he's had that mindset coming in, and his teammates have really rallied around him. But I would say, at defensive end, Caden Curry and both he and Kenyatta Jackson, CJ as well. He's taken on that new role, but they've stepped up their leadership too, and they've embraced Bo, and they know they're going to need everybody.
You hear about these guys in the offseason in the weight room. Was there anybody out there that really jumped out to you the first day of practice that you heard so much about and then got to see it on the field?
No. We don't have pads on, so you won't know until you start to really get the pads on and start going. This is all about learning how to practice together, playing fast, getting our feet underneath them, making sure they're lined up in the right spots, learning how to go 4 to 6A to B +2. So we'll get on the field and see where it's at with pads on here in a couple of days, and then we'll kind of go from there. I think that's obviously the biggest part of this is, when the pads come on and the physicality kicks in, that's when you start to know where guys are. When I say anybody, that's not the case. Not anybody, but I feel like saying anybody can go play without pads on. Once the pads come on, then you find out who's who.
Front row, Joey Top.
Ryan, this is a big picture question on somebody like Lincoln, who's when he has a background of playing multiple sports, and you talk about how great an athlete he is that at all helpful for what you guys want to accomplish at that quarterback position?
Yeah. Everybody has their own story. His story is unique to him. I'd say the first part is where he grew up. There's not many Division I quarterbacks coming out of South Dakota. I guess there's maybe been few, but for him, it's unique. But then when you look at his background in multiple sports, I think anytime you can play multiple sports, it's important. I guess nowadays when you look at some of these quarterbacks who move on, not all of them have played multiple sports because of the way things are designed now in youth sports, which I don't agree with. But I do think all those things help.
Front row, Austin Ward.
I think it was maybe 2 years ago, Tyleek went down on the first day of camp, and he was able to get back. There was plenty of time. It's a physical game, but if we could, what's it like in your mind when someone is down, someone who's you're expecting to play a key role on the first day after all the work in the off season? You get out there and it's like, all right, now this plan is gone.
Yeah.
At least for now.
Yeah. One of the things that you have to do is you have to plan accordingly. And I was just talking about this on the radio that, when we took the injury with Simmons in the Oregon game, that was a big blow. You're talking about a first-round draft pick at left tackle. And then so Donovan had to go then move to tackle. And so that wasn't easy, as we know, going into the game and having to go against Carter. And then when we lost McLaughlin, that was a major, major shot. And so now, you're moving Donovan. Now you have three guys in new spots. Now Carson had played before, but not really much that season. So, and that took us a couple weeks. And, it wasn't just that, but, we ended up losing a game in there and kind of restructuring it a little bit and kind of recalibrating a little bit, sort of like we did in the Oregon game after we lost that game on defense. And I think some of that is going to be part of injuries. When you're playing as many games as you have, you're going to have to build depth and you're going to have to adjust as the season goes on. And I think that's going to be a big part of the season this year, just like it was last year. So we try to do everything we can. We want to make sure that we can practice because we have to simulate a game, especially when you're playing a game like we are in the opener. I mean, we have to, iron sharpens iron. We got to get better. We got to get ready to roll. We got to tackle well. We got to take care of the football, all those things. But we also have to learn how to practice with each other to keep each other safe.
Third row center, Jeremy Birmingham.
Ryan, back to the quarterbacks, if I could. You've always said that you look for an extraordinary trait at the position. And most people, I think, assume that that's a physical trait, like whether it's accuracy or arm strength or running speed or whatever. Did Will and what he did, those little things, did it change anything for you in the way that you evaluate what you're looking for in somebody to lead? There's a lot of talent around these quarterbacks, so you can make do in some cases with maybe a little less physical talent. Has it changed the way you view this at all?
I think every time you have a quarterback, you learn a little more. Every year you learn just a little bit, and every quarterback I've been around, you take something from. And I would say Will's probably extraordinary trait physically was his size. He was big in there. But he did have an extraordinary leadership style, and his mindset was definitely unique to him. But I try to tell these guys all the time, you have to learn something from the guys that you were here before. Both Julian and Lincoln both saw Will lead. You don't have to be Will Howard, though. You got to be yourself. And that's just how it works. You have to be you, but you also have to lead and take command. So there are certainly things that you learn from and things that you grab onto and recognize things that helped us win a championship. And certainly Will had some of those things. But no two quarterbacks are the same. And so it's maximizing each guy and challenging them in those areas. And a big part of that's going to be leadership.
Right behind him, Patrick Murphy.
Ryan, obviously the starting receivers you guys have are as talented as any group in the country, but we've seen some of these backups or younger guys pop. Milan today, Quincy in the spring. Is there an opportunity to maybe rotate, or with fewer snaps and whatnot, do you think those guys just kind of have to bide their time?
Yeah, no, I think throughout the season you'll definitely see that. Week one we'll see, but you'll definitely see guys playing. We need to build depth at every position. We need to win the first game, so we'll decide who gives us the best chance to win that game. But as the season goes on, we need to develop some depth.
Fifth row on the aisle, Spencer Wolf.
Yeah, right. When you get early into camp, what do you want to see from Austin that makes you ready to make that decision at right tackle, and with Ethan that makes you ready to make that decision?
Yeah, I won't get into too much of, we don't make it public, the champions and the Iron Buckeyes, but Austin was an Iron Buckeye, and he had a tremendous offseason, and he's taken all the strides that you need to solidify yourself as a starter. So how that all gets shuffled here, we'll see. Remember last year we had that crazy illness, and we had to shuffle guys in. It's a long month, so we'll see. I think Tyler had a really good plan of having a primary position and then a secondary position. We'll go through, the first couple of weeks and figure out, where he can best help us, but whether it's guard or tackle. But he feels comfortable at both positions, so we'll keep figuring out which five we're going to go with to start the game.
Coach, practice is practice, games are games. From that standpoint with the quarterbacks, how much do you turn the heat up on them as practice wears on? You don't want them getting hit in practice, I would think, but and do you have a time frame? When do you hope to name a starter?
We did make them live the first time since I can ever remember in college in the spring. The plan is not to do that here in the preseason, but to turn the heat up, yeah, the heat's on them constantly. I make sure of that. But in terms of when the pads get on and feeling real bullets come by them, we're not going to hit them in the pocket. They did handle that in the spring, and that was good. I think it changed them a little bit in their perspective. Going into the game, you certainly would like to have a starter named, and each competition's a little bit different. If we have to go in with multiple quarterbacks, then that's probably not a great thing going into week one, but you never know. You got to do what's best you can to win the game. So they're going to have every opportunity they can to win the job. And sometimes based on the locker room. The guys on the team know what's going on. So we'll do everything we can to make sure we win the first game. Whoever gives us the best chance to win that, and then we'll go from there. But you just, with a young room like that, you have to predict that you're going to need everybody in the room. So the development's got to be, on a daily basis for all three of them.
Over here to Rob Olive.
Yeah, Ryan, as much as it makes sense not to dwell on the past, what you did last year, what can players take from last year to apply to this?
Well, I think there's a certain level of trust, knowing that if we follow the program, we stick with it, we can accomplish our goals. But the leaders who have actually been there and done that before, there's a certain level of confidence knowing that you have done it. And I think the guys in the room can look at some of the guys who played in that environment and say, these guys have actually done it. I know that if I can, support them and do my job, that those guys can lead us to wins and to lead us to our goals. And I think as the season goes on, they'll build confidence as they go. But they know what it looks like. They know what it feels like. There's no, secrets on that. They were here during preseason last year. They were here for the wins. They were here for the losses. They saw it all. So they have a perspective and a reference. Now, this is up to them. This is their group. This is their journey. So I think, those are all things that we can go back to. But to your point, it's more about right now. What's coming down the road doesn't matter. What's happened in the past doesn't matter. It's right now and maximizing each day, and that's where the focus has to be.
Got time for two more. We'll go in the front row. Bill Rabinowitz.
Last year, you had a very veteran team and a non-conference schedule that wasn't particularly challenging. This year, it's the opposite. You got a young team with a team like Texas coming in. How does that change your approach, your urgency? How does that affect things in camp?
Yeah, it affects things a lot. Yeah, it's that in that first game, you can't, quote unquote, be learning on the job in that first week. We got to be going. So we have to flush through as many issues as we possibly can, knowing we've got a long season ahead of us. But, it can come down to one play. So turnovers, tackling, being clean, missed assignments, penalties, like all those things, we got to be on top of. Substitutions, because all it takes is, one play and it can cost you. And, the good news is in a format where there's playoffs now with 12 teams, you can recover from it, maybe different than in the past. But at the same time, this game matters in a big way. And, a loss can hurt you and a win can really propel you. So we know what's at stake, and so every minute matters.
Wrap it up with Tim May.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Coach, I looked at the offensive line today, in the spring, but definitely today when you could hear that there's a lot of depth, it looks like, in the offensive line that wasn't there a couple of years ago. And I'm not just talking about the players. From a coaching standpoint, there's some big-time coaching going on the field, not just from, Tyler. Explain what that means just to getting things done. When you split up, you want competent coaching as well as reps, I would think. What does that mean to this team, you think?
Well, I think when they changed the rule to unlimited coaches, it certainly changed how we approach that room. And I give Tyler credit because, it takes somebody who doesn't have a big ego to say, I want to bring in the best coaches possible, and we're all going to be in this together, and it's not someone jockeying for position or posturing. Everyone's in there together. And so, Coach Bowen, Coach Johnson, and Coach Dickey are all saying the same thing. And I think that's important. It's not going to work if guys aren't on the same page. All three guys are on the same page. All three present different. They all have different backgrounds, and they all can kind of come at guys from different points of view, which I think is unique. And when you do have these situations where you split up work, and you saw in individual drills, you can put the centers, the guards, the tackles over here, and now you're getting more and more reps. And so, to your point, we can develop the depth. We have a chance to build really strong depth at that position. So we know the games are going to be won up front this season. So a lot of work to do, but encouraged with where we're at.
As you stood before that team, before y'all went places at the beginning of practice, do you sense a sense of respect for you now that maybe wasn't even there before? Meaning you've won a national championship. You listen to me, we can go play. You understand what I'm saying? How does that kind of change the feeling you have of doing your job?
Yeah, I think that our coaching staff and myself have always had great relationships with the players. They know what goes on. I think we've always had tremendous buy-in, and a big part of that is the type of people that we bring into our program. But when you go through a season that we did, and then you see the results and the rewards come through in the back end, it just gives you a certain amount of testimony, and that matters. I think when you talk about building trust, we talk a lot of times about the character of who you are. Are you actually going to, do what you say you're going to do? And in those difficult moments, like, who are you really? The second thing is your connection. Like, do you connect with people? Do you actually care about the people you're around? But the last one is competency. Like, when you stand up in front of a team and you put the plan together, whether it's an offense, defense, special team, or as the head coach, the guys in there have to trust that you know what you're talking about. So I think going through something like that just builds more and more trust. And then the last thing is you got to do it consistently over and over and over again. And so now we got to restart and do it all over again.
All right, Coach, thank you.
Yep, thanks.